Hey guys, hope everything's going well. You guys know that drill. Smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't, and follow me on Instagram at AIH underscore sports. Few things. I'm over 1,000 subs. It's been a hard grind over the past year, and finally I got over that mark. And I got here really without doing too many interviews or live streams, so I find that as a plus. And another thing is I wanted to show you some autos that I got. I may eventually sell these, but I'm getting them on the cheap, in my opinion. Got this Billy Williams. He was a former Cubs player, Hall of Famer. It's PSA DNA. You see this? So I really like this picture. And if you can see here, it says Sears. So Sears back in the day was huge. Now it's what, bankrupt, I believe. And yeah, they used to have the Sears Tower downtown Chicago by Union Station, now called the Willis Tower. And Sears used to have so many floors up there. And I can't believe it's bankrupt, to be honest. Or restructuring, whatever they're going through right now. I got another autograph of Billy Williams. It's just a small signature. The PSA DNA is on the back, and it's in the envelope, the authentication sign. So yeah, I mean, I'm getting these pretty much under $20 shipped. I mean, you can't ask more than that. If you go stand in line, like I mentioned before, you're paying at least $20, and to have then an authentication, I think BGS does that, and you have to pay what, $10 at least. So, and no line, like I mentioned. So, I find it fantastic, and it's of players that I remember as a kid. Even though Billy Williams I did not see as a kid, Billy Williams was, I believe, a first base coach or a third base coach. I remember, like in the '90s. So, yeah, that's I want to collect Cubs autographs too, and I'll get a few in the future. Anyways, this topic I didn't comment too much about it. People asked me in the comment section, or one question was asked, are you going to comment about StarStock? And I'm going to combine it with the boom bust cycle. So, StarStock was in the news last week, and there were many rumors, and I didn't want to speculate too much on this. I wanted it to wait a few days, and some news has come out, and what, at least 30 people have been laid off, unfortunately. And this is what happens in a boom bust cycle. All these companies come out right around the time of the boom, and they just will have trouble until they either figure it out, they find new sources of revenue, or they just go belly under. And the thing about a lot of these new companies, I'm not sure, and a lot of these people that came into this hobby early last year, I don't think they understand the basics about collectibles. Number one, you could read all of this in older articles. You may have to go to a database. You may have to go on Google Books and you could see excerpts. But ultimately, a lot of people, they don't know the disadvantages. Everyone knows the pros. We could list the pros, the advantages of speculating in collectibles or investing. But the disadvantages people don't know. Number one is liquidity. This thing isn't liquid. And the most liquid cards out there have high population size, and those cards values aren't too high to begin with. So that's the issue. And another basic thing is people haven't read the fact that investing and speculating in collectibles, usually in the past, you don't get your ROI probably for about 5 years. These were the rules of the past. And now, Everyone thought that this was a quick, easy money making scheme, but it's not. And a lot of people, unfortunately, are learning the hard way. And then you could even talk about the interest rate phenomenon. Just not even looking at negative rates or positive rates. Just look at this basic concept of Hayek, who won a Nobel Prize. You keep interest rates too low for too long, you're going to create all of these bubbles. And the blow off top happened most likely in March of last year. Now, you may see some record sales for some of these scarce RPA cards, some of these scarce game worn jerseys of Jordan, etc. You could see that, but that's on the really high end, and you don't see too many sales of that year over year. Anything that you see continuous sales of, those cards have gone down. For instance, the Fleer 86, and if you look at the Jeter PSA 9, the SP is the 1993, I think is the 279. PSA 9, it was like $27,000 last year, and it's gone down to close to $9,000. A month ago, it was close to 7,500 bucks. And might I remind you, we are in a time of inflation, and you're seeing the crash happening during an inflationary time. What happens when this inflation eventually will turn into what the mainstream calls deflation? There's always these cycles, and I don't believe we're going to have hyperinflation anytime soon. So it is what it is. So the thing is that a lot of these businesses, all they could have done that just came out, they could have just spent a few hours Googling the same things I did. I'm a nobody. I just have a YouTube channel of about, what, 1,000 people. And I figured this out just through my own research. Few hours on a database. You could go to your library. Most places will have their library, and you could just search for all of these things. You could do advantages of collectibles, disadvantages. You could type in liquidity of collectibles, etc. Just these simple searches. And it seems that a lot of these businesses did not. And we're seeing this boom bust cycle just blowing up early this year. I mean, we had fake Pokemon cases. The top authenticator, even though he's an expert in sports, the top authenticator got fooled. You have group submitters engaging in Ponzi schemes. And a lot of people still won't call out Karl Marx about this. I mean, just think about this. You get $1 million in cash, and what happens is you're not going to get the cards for X amount of time. And PSA is not going to charge you until they're done with the submissions, or not with the submission, with the grading. And what can be done is you could have placed this $1 million in a segregated account, or you could have placed this $1 million in an escrow account. And then when the time comes due, take those funds that were allocated for the PSA submissions and pay it off. And instead, it appears that these funds were used to fund the business, and the business went belly under. Just basic things like this, where people had faith and confidence in guys that they saw on YouTube just because they may seem nice, or you may had a decent experience with them just meeting to them at a show. They turn out to be sleazy businessmen. And I did talk about Rattle Pokemon the other day, and he talks about this one European group submitter to PSA. And I discussed this in my last video. None of the other sports card channels covered this. But the reality is, a bunch of cards got lost. And this group submitter, it looks like, didn't have the funds to fully compensate the individuals who had sent the cards out to them. Because if you have a higher grade, then you have to pour more money into it. But the money that was given wasn't enough to cover uh, an instance like this. There was no backup plan. And it's quite interesting that many people out there uh, defend guys like this. And I don't understand why people would defend guys like this. I mean, could it be Stockholm syndrome to a certain degree? I don't know. But the reality is, when you run a business, you have to have cushions for events like this. Now, for instance, my wife, she deals with e-commerce, and sometimes the shipping companies lose the packages. We've had this happen a few times. And guess what? We are responsible for this. Granted, it was small expense, but sometimes we sell large ticket item, not ticket items, but we sell items that are worth a lot of money. And the reality is, when we get the funds through the third party, which is what, PayPal or eBay system, we keep the funds for an extended period of time, and we use those funds, or we keep those funds just in case there's a dispute that arises. Suppose they want a package back, or something happened along the way. We have to be careful about that. And I specifically want those funds. I don't want to touch those funds. So it is what it is. And a lot of businesses don't follow that model, maybe because they don't have the extra cushion, the extra cash. And a lot of people, when they send their funds for group submitters, they don't ask these questions. So we're seeing stuff with group submitters just the beginning, in my opinion. And we're also seeing, unfortunately, the layoffs at StarStock. Hopefully, they can turn it around. But the question is, what else is next? This is just 1 month, and we've seen all these goofy things. Okay. And might I remind you once again, we are in an inflationary environment, which should be great for collectibles. And the reality is, the lot of these cards have come tumbling down. Some 80-90%. I've highlighted in my videos, which is insane. And I just say this again, what happens when interest rates start to go up and then you have positive interest rates, like I showed you in my other video? Right now we have negative interest rates, but we are doing not as hot as last year. And a couple of years from now, if the prices haven't, if people think that prices are cheap now, just probably wait for a few years, and that's when I probably want to be more aggressively buying. And unfortunately, we'll probably see more bankruptcies arise. We'll probably see more scams arise. And the other thing that I'll probably see is more people defending these guys who engaged in fraud, or if they didn't engage in fraud, they did not run their business properly. And yeah, that's what we're seeing. It's really, really strange, in my opinion. The other thing I wanted to note is that many individuals, or let me rephrase this. I was telling you, during the gold silver days, when the prices were going south, the YouTube community, you could call it community in quotes, people were going after each other. It wasn't that friendly environment people were accustomed to earlier on. And if you look at it now, there's, you could say, drama. People are going after each other. Last year I didn't see any of this, and I was watching videos left and right. Maybe there was, maybe I missed it, but for the most part it was cool and calm. Everything was great. And there's, once again, a lot of individuals that are not too happy right now, and a lot of people right now you could say that the morale isn't too high in the sports card community. And for this market to flourish, like the mid-sized cards, my opinion, the tensions probably need to go down. And I don't see it going down. I just see it getting worse as more of these bubbles, not bubbles, but more of these companies start to go under or they start to have layoffs. And I mentioned this over and over again. So if more of these companies go belly under and they have a vault, for instance, like what happens to your cards in that situation? Who has ownership? Any lawyer out there want to comment on that? Yeah, there may be insurance, but I'm not sure how this counterparty risk is going to work out. And yeah, what if one of these grading companies, they have cash flow issues and they have to lay off people, and then bada bing, bada boom. It's this boom bust cycle. But at the end of the day, it's necessary to weed out some of these all stars and some of these scammers and these fraudsters, and eventually there will be some great buying opportunities. Right now, I'm just focusing on items that are, in my opinion, cheaper than the cost of grade. While I may not make I may not make too much money on it. Ultimately, this thing's not going to go to zero, and I could speculate in $20, and I'm fine if it what goes to 16, $17 if I were to force liquidate it. Anyways, guys, let me know what you think. Smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't, comment down below, guys. Thank you. Bye.